Hello and welcome to another episode of the official report filmed right here at WCTV studio with me, your host, Queen Banda. And today my guest is Alan Slavin, our own town selectman, here to discuss the town warrant articles, and also we're going to dub upon the proposed or the ongoing housing projects that are not affordable. So join us, more information coming your way. Okay, so I have selected a few of the articles that I thought were intriguing, and we can start with Article 2, which asks for transfer of free cash.
That's basically a standard article that we do where we have free cash that's certified. Hopefully the free cash will be certified in October before town meeting. If we get everything done in time, there's no guarantee because that has to go through the Department of Revenue to get certified. And we've been putting certain dollar amount into the stabilization fund, which is a fund in case there's a real emergency of some kind, major, where you have cash available to take care of an emergency, and that's all it's for. It should never be used for anything else but that. And we have, I think, a policy that we have, I think it's 5 or 6% of our actual budget should be in stabilization. So say if you have a $60 million budget as an example. So you want to have about $3 million in your stabilization account.
Okay.
So you want to keep it in that level. So every year, if you use any, you want to put back the following year and keep it at that level.
Now, last year, the school department, the Wareham Free Library also came before you to ask for some of that money to go towards them. Both of these departments have been suffering for quite a long time. The Wareham Free Library lost its licensing, its certification.
About 4 years ago.
4 years ago. So how do you determine what is a rainy day? What's the definition of a rainy day when it comes to this kind of fund? Because I would think trying to help the library would be one of those occasions.
See, it doesn't work that way because if you're going to do that, when you say you have the library certified, that means the following year you have to sit there and also have those same funds available, plus a set like 5% increase. That's how it works in the state. It's not just the 1 year. Every year the Mass Library, they require a slight increase every year to stay certified, hours, etc. This particular stabilization fund is not to basically fund any department or any services going forward. What it's for is for an actual emergency where if we had a hurricane or a blizzard and we lost major portions of the town, that's what that money is used for.
Okay.
It's not used to take care of putting funds back into a department because it would be a continuous ongoing thing which would not work then.
All right, so now we're going to move to Article 3. And this is going to talk about what we owe, the debt that we have fiscal year of 2018.
Yeah, that's what that really is. That's a kind of a misnomer when it says, what it says unpaid bills. It means a bill that belongs in the 2018 fiscal year but didn't get received or processed in town in time. So say if you have a bill that comes in like late June, it doesn't get into the system until July. Well, technically you can't pay that bill because fiscal year 2018 has transpired. So you can't write a check, etc.
Okay.
So what happens is those bills are accumulated, whatever comes in late, because you may get a bill late for the previous year. So town meeting has to approve using those, taking funds to pay for it. And that's how it's done.
All right, very good. I see nobody who's going to complain or object.
No, it's bills that we owe and we have to pay it, and this is how you do it.
Very good. So Article 5, and this I think it's going to be the cause of having that auditorium filled on the 22nd.
Yeah.
Okay?
Probably.
So you had corrected me here. This, what I thought was people were about to, or the voters were being asked to approve a Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion. But what you told me is that it's not that case. They will be voting on that during November election.
Correct.
This time, we're just asking for voters to approve borrowing money if the new elementary school is
Yeah,
approved.
I'll read right from the article itself.
Okay.
And again, I think people either don't have the time or it isn't explained
The
properly.
language in these articles, what you mean you don't have time? I read this article over and over and over again. The language in it,
It's written by lawyers. What do you want? They don't want to make it easy for us.
something for Peter Titlebaum.
Hey, look, I'm going to tell you, I just have to deal with what I got.
Yeah.
It says here, to see if the town will vote to appropriate, borrow contingent upon the adoption of a Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion, or transfer from available funds a sum of money to be expended under the direction of the school building committee for a new elementary school on the existing, part. So what this means is, all you're voting here is allow the town to basically borrow the money, and again, to make sure it's clear, because it's really not for a lot of people, you have to borrow the full amount of whatever the school's going to cost. You don't borrow just what the net cost is to the town.
So we'll
if the
be
school-
borrowing 90 million.
Correct.
Oh my goodness, Alan.
No, but that's how it works.
Okay.
Okay, because you can't borrow what the net due after the MSBA pays their share. So what happens is, as the MSBA pays and stuff, you'll end up at, say, $40 million borrowed. It's just as a
Okay.
number. Okay, I don't know what the number's going to be because 90's out there. And the other piece of this is that it's 75%, which is a high number. I was talking to someone who actually is a chairman of the Board of Selectmen in Shrewsbury, and they're building a school, and they're only getting 54%. So, and he thinks for Wareham, he can't believe how much we're getting. He's completely doesn't know how we did it. I won't get into that either. But people have to understand, and it's really important this is clear, because if people don't understand it and think they're getting misled, it will create problems. MSBA pays for Wareham at 75.5%, I think is what the number is, which is really high, of approved acceptable expenses.
Okay.
So there may be things in there that are in the school, but that $90 million that MSB doesn't pay for. So when you look at the final numbers, it's not going to be 75-25. So it's important that the school building committee and the school department figures out, hopefully before the ballot, exactly what the total cost of the school is, how much the MSBA, which they'll tell you that amount, and that's what it works to.
Okay.
So when people think it's 75-25, it really isn't, because there are a bunch of different things you can't pay for. There was mention at the Board of Selectmen's meeting presentation this past Tuesday that they're looking maybe to put a light by the Minot School.
Okay.
Okay. Well, the state doesn't pay for that, number one. They don't put traffic lights in for us on a town road. So that means the town of Wareham is going to have to pay to put lights, etc. in there. MSBA doesn't pay for that. It's just as an example.
Okay.
So those will be expenses that we'll have to borrow to pay for.
Now, before we move out of this article, I have a few questions for you. People have noted that 90 million, it sounds as if we're building a palace. And they say elementary school shouldn't cost this much. From what was presented to you, to the selectmen last Tuesday by the school committee, what did the preliminary designs showed?
What they have is back a few years ago. I think it was Newton. I think it was maybe Newton North. They built a new high school maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not sure exactly. They broke the bank. They went in and built a school. I think it was. Don't hold me to the exact number. I think it was $260 million.
This is what Newton is talking
Newton North
about?
High School. Okay, and $260 million. And no, Newton North, Newton South. I used to live in Brookline, so they split their town up, so it's not like the whole town, the whole city of Newton. That number was so high that the state basically came back and said, no, we can't do this anymore. So the state has basic guidelines. They'll either repair and expand, or replace a school. They make the decision based on the engineering study the town has to pay to have done, which way they go.
Okay. And we paid for the engineering study.
Yeah, we've done that. We borrowed the money and we get back 70% or whatever that costs as well. It goes back in against, the actual project. So what happens is they have set building plans now, design, size, etc. So whether you like it or not, they already locked you in. If you think you're going to build something special and crazy, Well, you can try. They may not accept it, but they're not paying for it either. And in this case here, we're not really there. Again, the chairman of the board of Shrewsbury that I spoke to actually yesterday, he asked me how many students we were putting in the elementary school. I told him, and I think they only had like 700 kids on the one they were doing, and his project was $85 million. And nowhere near as large as us, actually. We have over 300 more kids. Our building is bigger, et cetera. So it's not, it sounds out of line, but, it's like anything else. In the state, you have what they call prevailing wage. You have other rules and regulations. If you were to build, say, a new studio here, it would cost, say, $10,000, just as a number. If you were to build this, but it was owned by the state of Massachusetts or a municipality, because of prevailing wage and other rules and regulations, it'd be at least 30% higher, just because of the way the laws and stuff are.
Okay.
So we're paying, if you can think of it, if the bill is $90 million, because of all the things you have to add into it that really shouldn't be there, it should be 30% less.
30% less. Now, from what was presented to you, everything, all the plans, were those the things, I mean, when you looked at them, did you say, yes, we need this, yes, we need this?
I can't say that, I'm not on the MSBA building committee.
Okay.
So I didn't have any input. My only input I had way in the beginning was I wanted one school, not two.
Okay.
And I insisted on that, and they said no, and then they finally came back and said, well, I guess you're right, you can do that. Because I thought it would save money by building one. It would put everything in one place. It would save the other costs down the line. The way it's presented, they have certain criteria, the school building committee, the teachers, et cetera, they all put in what they think they need for classrooms. I mean, there's really no art classes anymore. History is something nobody teaches anymore. There's just a lot of things that should be there that aren't there, even music. These are all skills that really develop a person, not just on reading and writing and math, but other skills that really should be developed. So the school is providing what someone my age was used to going to school. They're not building, customized classrooms that are crazy. They're not providing stuff way above what should be there. They're providing what's really needed. So I don't have a problem with that. My problem is really with construction. I looked at some real big glass windows, some other things. I asked questions because when we built the library in '95, they built something that really looked, really pretty and beautiful, but it was a bad design.
Okay. Now, so what you're telling me is that the 90 million or the choice of building a new school, it is not 100% coming from us. It's rather than the MSBA looked at our designs, looked at what was done on that site and came up with a decision that building a new school was going to be the more feasible solution. Their
first decision was, do we sit there, because we had originally for the minor school. So do we just do the minor school, or can we build a school that houses minor and deaconess? Because we'd be going after deaconess next after minor.
Absolutely.
So the original answer I got from the school committee was, no, you can only do the one. They won't let you do the two in one. Then about a year ago, all of a sudden, it changed.
Into the one. So basically, it's kind of like 45 for minor and 45 for deaconess.
If you want to put it that way.
We're getting two schools,
yeah.
right? Okay. So break it down to us. You're kind of the number guy. How much extra would people be seeing in their tax bill? Roughly, if it is that 90 million is the final cost.
The problem that I don't know is, out of the 90 million, how much of the 75, 25 is going to be covered and not covered. So that's the one thing. Hopefully, MSBA, I believe, in the first week of November is supposed to give a final answer on everything with the numbers, because everything will be submitted with all the pieces. Everything's still in flux. I would say the average tax bill per year is probably going to be anywhere from, could be as low as $170 to $260, somewhere in there. It could be, it floats because I don't know how much is going to be covered.
Okay.
And nobody does right now.
All right. Now, if nobody knows how much is going to be covered, how tough will it be to sell this to the town people on October 22nd?
It's not easy. I mean, if you go back in history, when they did the middle school, it took 3 tries at town meeting to get a debt exclusion done then. So It was needed and everything else, but again, that was 3 tries. And I imagine the middle school was probably, I don't even know what the number was, but the cost of building the middle school versus what we're doing now is, a tremendous amount less. But the costs go up every year.
Okay, so you're thinking maybe there's a chance that this is not going to be approved on October.
If someone was asking me, what's your feelings? I don't have, I can't say that, it's going to happen. I know what my own feelings are, but that doesn't matter. There's 15,000 voters in the town of Wareham, rounded off numbers. And, when the last time we had a debt exclusion and an override, it lost 30% in favor, 70% against.
Okay.
So I don't know how easy this is going to be.
Well, I think it's even tougher to sell this to the voters, especially those who do not have kids in Wareham public schools. They're asking themselves, why am I paying for another person's child to go to school?
I have a simple answer. Who paid for you when you went to school?
All right, so I take it you're going to be the spokesperson on the 22nd regarding this matter.
Yeah, it's that simple. Our parents did not pay for our own education. Maybe our grandparents might have. So there's a moral and ethical obligation as we get older, even though we have no kids in the school anymore, or we don't have kids, period, or whatever, but someone paid for us to be educated. And really to be educated, I think, at a better level than it is today for what's provided. So we have a moral and ethical obligation to make sure that the kids that come after us get educated properly.
Okay, so moving to Article 9, housing numbering by law. What is going on? How necessary is this?
Selectman Tropiano basically brought this up. We have at times where fire, police, ambulance need to go to a house. And some of the streets and layouts, the numbers don't jive really well. It's hard to figure out. And if you go down some of the streets, there's like no number in the mailbox a lot of times, and you can't see a number on the house. So this is just trying to standardize, that. And this is basically, I think the ambulance and police in particular, maybe fire, had talked to Selectman Tropiano about that issue. I've heard it before. Some people think, it's not necessary, whatever. But if you're sitting there with emergencies, an ambulance is looking for someone who's had a heart attack, every second counts.
Now, whether some people think this is necessary or not, this is if approved, it will be the new bylaw, and people would have to amend by it.
Yeah, they would have to sit there and and you're supposed to have your number in your house easily visible. It's already kind of there already, but this just lays it out even more. It gives you much more definition to what it is.
Okay. More meat towards this pot roast of ours. Article 11, Tremont Nell remediation, yes.
Okay.
Allocating the sum of $1,430,000 towards cleanup of contamination at the Tremont Nell factory.
Okay, this one is interesting.
It is interesting.
We've bought the property back, I think, in 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. As everybody knows by now, there was never a proper 21E, which is basically they would examine soils, et cetera, from the whole property going down to make sure there's no contamination. So the town went ahead and bought this. Town meeting wasn't unanimous, but it was pretty close to buy the property. I won't get into the reasons why. Hindsight's easy. I could tell you it's a mistake, but it's well after the fact. I wasn't physically at town meeting when the vote took place, so I can't take any responsibility either way. We had money given to us to go ahead and do the dam work and some other stuff. We had to give the money back because we were still dealing with the dam ownership, obviously, with Makepeace. But the bottom line is we decided to go ahead. We got a Mass Works grant to check, basically do an initial study of the grounds and stuff, which means we rolled the dice almost. Because if they had found severe contamination, you could be sitting there looking at $20 to $50 million in remediation to remove contamination. Because once you go in and find it, you'll
have to take care of it.
Yeah, you can't sit there and know I'm going to ignore it now. You have to take care of it, and it's at your expense. I mean, yes, you could go after the people who own the property before, maybe even going back farther. I'm not sure how easy it is to collect any money that way. So we basically rolled the dice, and at 1.4 million, it sounds like a horrible number, but it's really extremely inexpensive remediation considering what it could have cost. So we have to go ahead and do this, and through town council, et cetera, there's been some concerns whether or not it really is covered under the CPA program. But the answer has been yes, you can be. And what it is every year there'll be X number of dollars that are allotted to it. We're not putting out 1.4 million all at once. We'll bond it, borrow it, and then every year we'll have to make a payment on that bond.
Wait a minute. We are borrowing from CPC fund?
No, we'll borrow the money.
Okay, and then
use
CPC funds to pay for it.
Every year we'll have a dollar amount they pay for.
Why the extra step? Why don't we just go directly and take the money out of CPC?
Well, simply because it's less expensive and easy to do it this way.
I will take
It's
your word
simple.
for it.
It
simple.
is.
Okay, so once again, we had talked about this business company, marijuana manufacture company from Colorado, right? Who are very interested in using one of the buildings at Tremont Nail Factory.
Yeah, the steel building.
The steel building to continue their business. And so I'm wondering if this is one of the contingency to bringing this business in that we need to clean.
No, what really people have to understand here is if we want to do anything at all with that property, because it's you have an article, there's a zoning bill, I believe it's the
Zoning Article 13, yes.
It's an overlay district change. Because the Tremont Nail Factory was moved into it sometime back a ways into the Village 1 district, it really limits what you can do in that property. Everybody thinks, well, it's obviously a commercial property, industrial, whatever. It's not. Village 1 is not that at all. So if you want to bring in a pottery maker, you want to bring in a brewery, or any of those things, you have to change that actual district to a different zoning.
Okay.
So that's what this is for. Obviously, the marijuana facility that's coming in into the steel building, which is not historical or anything else at that point, gives the town a base dollar amount for income over the, say, a 10-year period, which could be worth something like $2 to $3 million in income. Some of that would go to general funds, some of it would go to the actual factory land itself to basically rebuild and redevelop that, because you have to understand those wood buildings that are standing there, when the study was done by Torres, Mendes, and Spencer, probably back 7, 8 years ago now, the cost to make them usable for retail, or basically from light manufacturing to all the way to retail use, was $5 to $9 million for the 3 main buildings. We really were unable to find any developer that wanted to come in and do anything at that point. Mr. Buckland was hired, for Director of Planning and Economic Development. He's been reaching out, and we've actually have some people come in interested in doing things. Some of the people that are interested can't afford to do anything there on their own because of the cost of getting to that point. So I know it's going to be extremely controversial. It's going to be probably the biggest problem with this article is that included in there is the marijuana pace for a manufacturing facility.
You know what we talked, and also again we talked about this before. The fact that when the town voted to purchase this building, they voted out of their heart. Wasn't a lot, not a lot of thinking, but not a lot of calculation of what this building is going to cost us, what shape is it in, and so forth. It was due to the fact that this building means something to this community and we want to keep it. Now that we have purchased it, almost 2 decades, right? Well, a decade and a half later, it's still empty.
Yep.
So we need to do something about it. So, of course, the $430,000, it's a lot of money, but we are at a point where, what's $1 more million adding to this?
Well, we've already spent a couple $1 million, actually. And we spend probably a couple $100,000 every year anyways, just on maintenance and everything else that goes along with it.
So we might as well just finish it up with the maintenance, cleaning up the area, and have some businesses go in there and to have this building actually give back to the community rather than just keep on taking.
Yeah, I mean, it's either do it and do it right. It's always my philosophy. If you do something halfway or not correct, it doesn't work. But you have 2 choices. Either get this thing so you can do something with it, or I guess watch it fall apart, or something worse happen to it.
Okay. We do not have a lot of time left, but tell us a little bit about the housing projects that are ongoing and some that are proposed, which are not under affordable housing.
Well, what we have right now is we just had the model open house over at Rosebrook, over where the liquor store used to be. They've got a model built into that store there. And yesterday was the opening of the sales office there. I don't know if they've sold any units yet. I think there's 65 or 68 units going in there. There's $1,700 to $2,400 monthly rent. Obviously, none of that's going to be considered affordable, which goes against the wrong direction that we need to go as far as the numbers for the 40B issue.
We were talking about how close we were to 10%. We were at 9.7%. With this proposed non-affordable housing units, we're going to drop even lower.
We won't drop below 7.7, but we're
going to continue this dance.
Yeah, but you also have to remember, which we didn't bring in, I think I mentioned it at the last meeting or so, that Bay Point is building something like 98 units between condominiums and houses, plus 2 regular houses sitting on Onset Ave. So I think there might be 100 units total, or 98 total. That plus 68 versus 150 for the other ones. So we're
canceling each other's out.
Not as much, because remember, it's only like 10% of total. So it's not as bad a number as it looks like, but we're not helping ourselves.
Okay. Well, we cannot do anything about this. You cannot, right? So
I mean, if you look at it, you're going to generate some pretty good income, from the Rosebrook, and you're going to generate some really strong income, from Bay Point for the town. So the town is going to have more money in the general fund through taxes, etc. So there's no complaint with it. It's just that on the 40B issue, you don't get that control of what goes into your town.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Alan, for coming to our studio again. And there's time to really choose some of these articles up so people can understand what they'll be actually voting for.
Yeah, they just have to understand, that if it doesn't make sense reading it, and a lot of times because you're looking basically at the motion that's going to be there, you need to ask some questions to make sure you understand what it is. I mean, we've got several articles that we had that was duplications. We had one article that CPC had that we removed because we had a citizen petition article completely mirroring the same thing. We have another article for Gary for the on his waterways fund, and then we have an individual who's put an article in looking for a survey for to help dredging and stuff, which is supposed to be in Mr. Buckminster's piece as well. So I don't know how those go.
Okay. So, but in here we have a total of 20 articles.
Yeah, we had 22. And we eliminated and we combined. I think water pollution control facility had 3 separate items, and they got moved into what we call your capital plan.
Okay.
I think it's the first article, actually.
Yeah.
And they'll be discussed. Mr. Sullivan will make a decision of what capital items he wants to bring forward. Because if you look at the charter and the bylaws, you have a capital planning committee, and anything that's on the capital plan, which they have to put in, and they vote to approve in what year they think it should be done, gets submitted to the town administrator. The town administrator then decides what or if any items go onto his capital plan budget for the year.
Okay. Well, thank you once again. To my viewers, thank you for joining us in another episode of The Official Report, filmed right here at the WCTV studio with me, your host, Queen Banda. My guest again was our own selectman, Alan Slavin, here to digest the fall town meeting warrant articles, and we also dabbed just a little bit on the non-affordable housing units coming to Wareham. Until next time, I wish you all a wonderful day.